The air here in Egypt, even now, after all these years, carries a certain scent. Not the dry, sharp tang of the desert, though that is ever present, but something deeper, a whisper of papyrus and the rich, dark earth beside the Nile, where the annual flood leaves its blessing. It smells of eternity, perhaps. I often sit by the window in the quiet of the evening, long after the day's duties are done, and watch the stars wheel above the pyramids. They are the same stars, that shone over my father's tents in Canaan, though the constellations here are arranged somewhat differently, as if God himself decided to reorder the heavens for my new life. My name is Joseph, or rather, that is what my father Jacob called me. Here I am known as Zaphanath-Paneah, a name given by Pharaoh himself. It means, so they tell me, God speaks, he lives. A rather grand title for a shepherd boy, wouldn't you say? But then again, my life has been rather grand and rather terrible and entirely unexpected. If you're finding it hard to settle, my friend, perhaps my story can be a gentle stream for your thoughts to float upon. It's a long tale, full of twists and turns, like the Nile itself. But sometimes, when the heart is troubled, it helps to hear how even the most crooked paths can lead to a place of peace. Let us begin not here, in this palace of stone and light, but back in the dusty tents of my youth, under a different sky. I was born late to my father, the son of his beloved Rachel. There were many of us, 12 brothers in all, but I was special in my father's eyes, a child of his old age, born of the wife he loved above all others, and he showed it, perhaps a little too much. I remember the coat. Oh, that coat. It was not just any coat, you understand. It was a tunic of many colors, a garment of distinction, long-sleeved, flowing, unlike the rough, practical tunics my brothers wore for their toil in the fields. The threads gleamed, red and blue and gold, woven with care. When I wore it, I felt as if I carried a piece of the sunset on my shoulders, or perhaps all the hues of a spring meadow. It rustled softly as I walked, a gentle reminder of my father's affection. My brothers, they noticed. Oh, how they noticed. Their eyes would follow me, not with admiration, but with a gaze that felt heavy, like stones in a sling. I was the one who often carried tales back to our father, not out of malice, but because I believed in truth. And when our father loved me more than all his other sons, they could not speak peacefully to me. It was a silence filled with resentment, a quiet, simmering heat beneath the surface. Then came the dreams. Ah, the dreams. I was but a boy, perhaps 17 years old, and my mind was full of the vibrant imagery of the night. The first I shared with a certain innocent eagerness. We were binding sheaves in the field, I told them, and suddenly my sheaf stood upright, and your sheaves gathered around it and bowed down to my sheaf. The silence that followed was not peaceful. My brothers, big, strong men with calloused hands, stared at me as if I had sprouted horns. My father, always more discerning, raised an eyebrow. "What is this dream that you have dreamed?" he asked, a hint of rebuke in his voice. "Shall I and your mother and your brothers indeed come to bow ourselves to the ground before you?" Even he, who loved me, found the notion absurd. But I was a dreamer, you see. I could not help but dream, and I could not help but share. A second dream came to me, even grander. This time, the sun, the moon, and 11 stars bowed down to me. Again, the recounting. Again, the incredulity. My brothers hated me even more for my dreams and for my words. I could feel their animosity like a chill wind, even in the warmth of the tent. It was not a happy home for me then, despite my father's great love. One day, my brothers had gone to pasture our father's flock in Shechem, a long journey away. My father, ever anxious for their well-being, sent me to check on them. "Go now, see if it is well with your brothers and with the flock," he instructed, his hand resting on my shoulder. I remember the feel of his calloused fingers, the weight of his concern. So I set out, wearing my splendid coat, a beacon of my father's favor in the vast, dusty land. I walked for days, from the valley of Hebron, through Shechem, where I could not find them, until a man pointed me towards Dothan. The sun beat down, and the distant hills shimmered with heat. My sandals stirred the fine dust with every step. I was tired, but determined. As I approached Dothan, I saw them in the distance, a cluster of figures tending the sheep. My heart lifted, relief, a longing for connection, despite our differences. But their hearts, it seemed, beat to a different drum. They saw me coming, a long way off, and before I came near to them, they conspired against me to tell me.
I heard their voices, sharp and cutting, even before I could make out their faces clearly. "Here comes this master of dreams," they sneered. Oh, how that phrase, once a gentle jest, had become a barbed insult. "Come now, let us kill him and throw him into one of the pits. Then we will say that a wild animal has devoured him, and we shall see what will become of his dreams." My blood ran cold. This was not the usual sibling rivalry, the petty squabbles over chores or inheritance. This was murderous intent. Reuben, my eldest brother, usually the most impulsive, had a flicker of something resembling conscience. He tried to save me, suggesting we throw me into a pit instead of shedding my blood directly, planning to rescue me later. I remember a small surge of hope, a desperate clinging to the idea that not all was lost. They seized me, their hands rough and unforgiving. The beautiful coat, the symbol of my father's love, was ripped from my back with a vicious tear. The vibrant colors, so full of life, seemed to mock my impending doom. I cried out, pleaded with them, but my words were swallowed by the wind and their hardened hearts. They cast me into a pit, a dry cistern, thank heavens, not filled with water, but still a dark, suffocating hole in the earth. The air was thick with the smell of damp soil and ancient decay. I fell, landing with a thud that knocked the breath from my lungs. Above me, the opening shrank to a coin-sized disk of brilliant blue sky, then disappeared as they covered it with a stone. Darkness, absolute, terrifying darkness, and silence, the kind of silence that presses in on you, that amplifies every thump of your own panicked heart. I was alone, abandoned by my own flesh and blood. The dreams, the coat, my father's love, all seemed to mock me from the blackness. I wept then, not for myself, not entirely, but for the shattering of everything I had known. I don't know how long I lay there, listening to the echoes of my own despair. Time lost all meaning in that tomb-like space. My throat was dry, my lips cracked. The dust settled on my skin, mingling with my tears. Then, a sound. Voices. The distinct jingling of camel bells. Hope. A fragile, desperate thing, stirred within me. They pulled me out. Rough hands again. But this time, a different set of faces. Midianite traders, their skin weathered by the desert sun, their eyes shrewd. My brothers, it seemed, had decided that selling me was better than having my blood on their hands. A less messy solution, and perhaps even profitable. They sold me for 20 shekels of silver. A mere 20, the price of a slave. I remember the journey to Egypt.
tied with ropes, walking behind the camels, the endless stretches of sand, the scorching sun by day, the biting cold by night. My feet, once accustomed to soft grass, became raw and bleeding. Each step was a step away from home, away from family, away from everything I knew. I was utterly alone, a piece of merchandise. Egypt, a land of stark contrasts, the vibrant, bustling cities along the Nile, so different from the nomadic tents of Canaan, the colossal monuments, the strange gods, the incomprehensible language. I was led through crowded marketplaces, past vendors shouting their wares, the smell of exotic spices and roasting meat filling the air. It was overwhelming, a cacophony of newness that only deepened my sense of displacement. I was sold again, this time to Potiphar, an officer of Pharaoh, the captain of the guard, a powerful man, stern and imposing. His house was a maze of courtyards and chambers, far grander than anything I had ever imagined. Here, I thought, is where my life truly ends. I am a slave, and this is my fate. But God, in his infinite and peculiar wisdom, had other plans. It was clear to everyone, even to Potiphar, that the Lord was with me, and that the Lord made all that I did to prosper in my hand. No matter the task, no matter how menial, it seemed to flourish under my care. I learned quickly, I worked diligently, and I sought to be trustworthy in all things. Potiphar saw this. He made me overseer of his house, and put him in charge of all that he had. From that time forward, his house was blessed on my account. The fields yielded abundant harvests, the livestock multiplied, and his household ran with a smooth efficiency that had not been there before. He trusted me implicitly, so much so that he left everything he had in my charge, and with me in charge, he paid no attention to anything but the food he ate. It was a strange sort of comfort, this prosperity and bondage. To be a slave, yet to be respected, to be given such responsibility. I had a purpose, a sense of belonging, however tenuous. I was young, strong, and in the prime of my life, and I was, by all accounts, handsome in form and appearance. This, alas, proved to be its own particular challenge.
Potiphar's wife. Ah, yes. She began to cast her eyes upon me. At first, it was just a lingering glance, a smile that held more than simple friendliness. Then it became more direct. Daily, she would say, "Lie with me." It was a persistent thing, like a buzzing fly that you cannot quite swat away. Every day, the same invitation, the same alluring days, the same soft whisper. I tried to reason with her,
gently at first. "Look," I would say, "with me here, my master has no concern about anything in the house, and he has put everything that he has in my charge. There is no one greater in this house than I am, nor has he withheld anything from me except you, because you are his wife." I remember the absurdity of it sometimes. Here I was, a slave, being propositioned by the mistress of the house. It was a power dynamic turned on its head, and yet I knew the true power rested with her, should I displease her. But more than that, I knew my loyalty. How then can I do this great wickedness and sin against God? I would ask her, and myself. My integrity, my faith, that was all I had left of my true self. But she would not listen. She spoke to me day after day, and I would refuse, avoiding her, not lying beside her or being with her. It was a constant dance, a wearying battle of wills within the confines of that grand house. I was careful, always, to avoid being alone with her. Until one day, I went into the house to do my work, and none of the men of the house were there inside. A trap, perhaps, or simply an opportunity she seized. She caught me by my garment, pulling me towards her, her eyes blazing with a strange mix of desire and fury. "Lie with me," she demanded, her voice hoarse. I tore myself free, leaving my garment in her hand. I fled. I ran out of the house, my heart hammering in my chest. The image of her face, twisted in rage, burned into my mind. I had escaped, yes, but I knew with a certainty that chilled me to the bone that this was far from over.
I saw their distress the next morning. Their faces were troubled, their brows furrowed. "Why are your faces downcast today?" I asked them. They explained their predicament, the unsettling nature of their dreams, and the absence of anyone to interpret them. "Do not interpretations belong to God?" I asked them, my voice quiet but firm. "Please tell them to me." It was a familiar refrain, this reliance on divine insight. The gift of dreams, which had brought me so much suffering, was now, perhaps, my only asset. The chief cupbearer went first. He described a vine with 3 branches, blossoming and bearing grapes, which he pressed into Pharaoh's cup. "In 3 days," I told him, "Pharaoh will lift up your head and restore you to your office, and you will place Pharaoh's cup in his hand as you used to do when you were his cupbearer. And then," I added, "only remember me when it is well with you, and please do me the kindness to mention me to Pharaoh and get me out of this house, for I was indeed stolen out of the land of the Hebrews, and here also I have done nothing that they should put me into the pit." A simple request, a plea for remembrance. He promised he would. He seemed genuinely grateful. The chief baker, seeing the favorable interpretation, then shared his own dream. He had 3 baskets of white bread on his head, and in the uppermost basket all sorts of baked food for Pharaoh, but the birds were eating it out of the basket on his head. My heart sank. The imagery was clear, and it was not good. "In 3 days," I said, my voice heavy with sorrow, "Pharaoh will lift up your head from you and hang you on a tree, and the birds will eat the flesh from you." And so it came to pass. On the 3rd day, which was Pharaoh's birthday, he made a feast for all his servants.
he lifted up the head of the chief cupbearer and the head of the chief baker among his servants. He restored the chief cupbearer to his office, and he put the cup into Pharaoh's hand. But the chief baker he hanged, just as I had interpreted. And the chief cupbearer, he forgot me, utterly, completely. He went back to his position of honor and never gave me another thought. 2 full years passed, 2 years of continued imprisonment, 2 years of that crushing disappointment, the bitter taste of being forgotten. It was a lesson in human nature, perhaps, that those who promise much in their distress often forget those promises when prosperity returns. Then Pharaoh himself had dreams, 2 of them vivid and disturbing. He saw 7 fat cows coming up out of the Nile, sleek and well-fed, grazing in a meadow. Then 7 other cows, thin and ugly, came up after them and devoured the fat cows. And yet after devouring them, they were just as ugly as before. He awoke, troubled, but fell asleep again and had a second dream. 7 ears of grain, plump and good, grew on a single stalk. Then 7 thin, scorched ears sprouted after them and swallowed up the plump ears. Pharaoh awoke, deeply disturbed. He sent for all the magicians of Egypt and all its wise men, but no one could interpret his dreams. The great minds of the land were stumped, their wisdom failing them. It was then, and only then, that the chief cupbearer remembered me. "I remember my faults today," he began, his voice surely filled with a measure of trepidation. He recounted my story, my imprisonment, the dreams, and their accurate interpretations. There was a young Hebrew man with us there, a servant of the captain of the guard, and when we told him, he interpreted our dreams to us. Each man's dream he interpreted, and as he interpreted to us, so it came to pass. Pharaoh sent and called for me. They rushed me from the prison, shaved me, changed my clothes, and brought me before the great ruler of Egypt. The contrast was dizzying. One moment the cold stone of the dungeon, the next the opulent hall of Pharaoh, filled with gold and incense, the air thick with expectation. Pharaoh looked at me, his gaze piercing. "I have had a dream, and there is no one who can interpret it," he said, his voice echoing in the vast chamber. "I have heard it said of you that when you hear a dream you can interpret it." I stood before him, a former slave, accused and forgotten, yet now standing at the very precipice of power. I could have seized the moment, claimed the glory for myself, but the years of suffering, the unwavering presence of God even in the darkest pits, had taught me humility. "It is not in me," I replied, my voice steady. "God will give Pharaoh a favorable answer." Pharaoh then recounted his dreams, the fat cows and the lean, the full ears and the scorched. As he spoke, the meaning, clear and undeniable, unfurled itself in my mind. It was a message of warning, a prophecy of great significance.
"Pharaoh's dreams are one," I explained. "God has revealed to Pharaoh what he is about to do. The 7 good cows are 7 years, and the 7 good ears are 7 years. The dreams are one. The 7 lean and ugly cows that came up after them are 7 years, and the 7 empty ears scorched by the east wind are 7 years of famine." My voice, once the quiet voice of a shepherd boy, then a slave, now spoke with the authority of divine revelation. There will come 7 years of great plenty throughout all the land of Egypt, and after them there will arise 7 years of famine, and all the plenty will be forgotten in the land of Egypt. The famine will consume the land, and the plenty will not be known in the land by reason of the famine that will follow, for it will be very severe. I then offered counsel, not just interpretation. "Now therefore let Pharaoh select a discerning and wise man, and set him over the land of Egypt. Let Pharaoh proceed to appoint overseers over the land, and take 1/5 of the produce of the land of Egypt during the 7 plentiful years. And let them gather all the food of these good years that are coming, and store up grain under the authority of Pharaoh for food in the cities, and let them keep it. That food shall be a reserve for the land against the 7 years of famine that are to occur in the land of Egypt, so that the land may not perish through the famine." My words hung in the air, heavy with the weight of prophecy and practical wisdom. Pharaoh listened, and his advisors listened. The plan seemed good in the eyes of Pharaoh and in the eyes of all his servants. Then Pharaoh spoke, his voice filled with a new respect. "Can we find a man like this, in whom is the Spirit of God?" And turning to me, he declared, "Since God has shown you all this, there is none so discerning and wise as you are. You shall be over my house, and all my people shall order themselves as you command. Only as regards the throne will I be greater than you."
The speed of it all was breathtaking. One moment a prisoner, the next the second most powerful man in Egypt. Pharaoh took his signet ring from his hand and put it on my hand, clothing me in garments of fine linen and putting a gold chain about my neck. He had me ride in his second chariot, and they cried before me, "Bow the knee." He made me ruler over all the land of Egypt. I was 30 years old, 30 years old, and from the pit to the palace in a single day. The journey of my life, which had seemed a relentless descent, had suddenly reversed course, soaring higher than I could ever have imagined. The boy who dreamed of sheaves bowing down now had an entire kingdom at his feet. It was humbling, dizzying, and utterly, profoundly terrifying. Pharaoh gave me a wife, Asenath, the daughter of Potiphera, priest of On. She was beautiful, kind, and brought a quiet solace to my tumultuous life. We had 2 sons. I named the first Manasseh, saying, "God has made me forget all my hardship and all my father's house." And the second I named Ephraim, saying, "God has made me fruitful in the land of my affliction." The 7 years of plenty were indeed abundant. The earth brought forth in handfuls. I traveled throughout the land, overseeing the collection of grain. We gathered it like the sand of the sea, so much that I stopped measuring it, for it was beyond measure. The granaries, immense structures of brick and stone, rose higher and higher, filled to bursting with the bounty of Egypt. Then came the famine. It began subtly at first, a dryness in the air, a diminishing of the usual river's bounty. But soon it settled over the land like a shroud. The 7 years of plenty were indeed forgotten. The famine was severe in all lands, but in all the land of Egypt there was bread. The people of Egypt, when they began to cry out for bread, were directed to me. "Go to Joseph," Pharaoh commanded, "and do whatever he tells you." I opened all the storehouses and sold to the Egyptians. And when the famine grew even more severe, people from all lands came to Egypt to buy grain from me, because the famine was severe over all the earth. It was a time of immense responsibility, of constant vigilance. Every decision I made affected countless lives. I worked tirelessly, ensuring that the grain was distributed fairly, that the system remained just. There were desperate eyes, gaunt faces, every day. It reminded me, in a way, of my own hunger in the pit, my own desperation. It kept me grounded, even in my lofty position. And then, one day, they came. A group of men, weathered by travel, their faces shrouded in cloaks against the dust. They entered the storehouse, their eyes wide with awe at the mountains of grain, their bellies aching with hunger. And they bowed down before me, with their faces to the ground. My brothers.
My heart hammered against my ribs, a chaotic drumbeat of shock, recognition, and a surge of old pain. They did not recognize me, of course. My Egyptian robes, my shaven head, the years, the power, the language I now spoke with such fluency. They saw only the vizier of Egypt, a powerful, foreign figure. But I knew them. Reuben, Simeon, Levi, Judah, Issachar, Zebulun, Dan, Naphtali, Gad, Asher. 10 of them. Where was Benjamin? Where was my full brother? My dreams, the sheaves, the sun, moon, and stars, they had come to pass. They were bowing down before me, just as I had dreamed so many years ago. A strange, bitter satisfaction mingled with a profound sorrow. I spoke harshly to them through an interpreter, feigning ignorance. "Where do you come from?" I demanded. They explained they had come from the land of Canaan to buy food. "You are spies," I accused, my voice cold and hard. "You have come to see the weakness of the land." They denied it, of course, protesting their innocence, explaining their family, their father, their younger brother who was with their father, and another who was no more. "We are 12 brothers," they said. "The youngest is this day with our father, and one is no more." My heart ached at that,
the casual way they spoke of me as no more. I tested them. I put them in custody for 3 days. It was a cruel thing to do, I know, but I needed to understand their hearts. Had they changed? Were they still the same jealous, ruthless men who had cast me into a pit? On the 3rd day, I brought them out. Do this and live, I told them, knowing they were men who feared God. If you are honest men, let one of your brothers remain confined in your prison, and let the rest go and carry grain for the famine of your households, and bring your youngest brother to me, so your words will be verified, and you shall not die. They agreed. And then they spoke among themselves, believing I did not understand their Hebrew. Indeed, we are guilty concerning our brother, Reuben said, his voice heavy with remorse, in that we saw the distress of his soul when he begged us and we did not listen. Therefore is this distress come upon us. My heart clenched. They remembered. They carried the guilt. For the first time, I allowed myself to weep, turning away so they would not see my tears. I took Simeon and bound him before their eyes, a harsh but necessary act to press the lesson upon them. I secretly ordered that their sacks be filled with grain, and each man's money returned to his sack, and provisions given to them for the journey. They left, carrying their grain, their hearts surely heavy with fear and guilt. When they returned to Canaan and discovered the money in their sacks, terror gripped them. Our father, Jacob, was distraught. He refused to let Benjamin go. My son shall not go down with you, he declared, his voice broken, for his brother is dead, and he alone is left. If harm should happen to him on the journey that you are to make, you would bring down my gray hairs with sorrow to Sheol. But the famine pressed on, severe and relentless. They ate all the grain they had brought from Egypt. Finally, Judah, always the one with a certain blend of boldness and practicality, stepped forward. He pledged his own life for Benjamin's safety. Send the boy with me, he pleaded with our father, and we will arise and go, that we may live and not die, both we and you and also our little ones. He even added, I will be surety for him. From my hand you shall require him. If I do not bring him back to you and set him before you, then let me bear the blame forever. Our father, seeing no other option, finally consented. He instructed them to take the best fruits of the land as a gift for the man, and double the money just in case. And with a heavy heart, he sent them forth, along with my full brother, Benjamin.
The next morning, as they departed, I sent my steward after them. Pursue the men, I commanded, and when you overtake them, say to them, Why have you repaid good with evil? Is not this that from which my master drinks, and with which he indeed practices divination? You have done evil in so doing. The steward caught up with them, and they, confident in their innocence, protested vehemently. Why does my lord speak such words as these? They cried. Far be it from your servants to do such a thing. Behold, the money that we found in the mouth of our sacks we brought back to you from the land of Canaan. How then could we steal silver or gold from your master's house? They even offered, Whichever of your servants is found with it shall die, and we also will become my lord's slaves. A bold declaration. The search began, from the eldest to the youngest,
and there, in Benjamin's sack, was the cup. The look on their faces I can only imagine: horror, despair, a crushing sense of inevitability. They tore their clothes in anguish and returned to the city. They were brought before me, falling to the ground. Judah, ever the spokesman, stepped forward. His plea was heartfelt, raw with emotion. He recounted their father's love for Benjamin, the loss of Joseph, and the devastating impact Benjamin's loss would have on their old father. He offered himself as a slave in Benjamin's place, pleading for the boy's freedom. That was it. That was the moment. Judah's willingness to sacrifice himself for his younger brother, his father's last remaining son from Rachel, was the proof I needed. Their hearts had changed. The years of guilt, the fear of God, the severity of the famine had softened them, transformed them. I could hold it in no longer. I commanded everyone to leave the room. Only my brothers and I remained. And then I wept. I wept so loudly that the Egyptians heard it, and the household of Pharaoh heard it. The dam had broken. All the years of pain, of longing, of silent suffering poured out in a torrent of tears. When I could speak, my voice was choked with emotion. "I am Joseph," I said, my voice barely a whisper, yet it echoed through the silent chamber. "Is my father still alive?" They were stunned, terrified. They could not answer me, for they were dismayed at my presence. Their faces, once familiar, were now masks of shock and fear. They must have thought I would exact a terrible revenge. "Come near to me, please," I urged them, my voice softening, trying to soothe their terror. They came near. "I am your brother, Joseph, whom you sold into Egypt. And now do not be distressed or angry with yourselves because you sold me here, for God sent me before you to preserve life." It was true, all of it. The betrayal, the pits, the slavery, the prison, it had all been part of a larger plan. For the famine has been in the land these 2 years, and there are yet 5 years in which there will be neither plowing nor harvest. And God sent me before you to preserve for you a remnant on earth, and to keep alive for you many survivors. My eyes found Benjamin's. He too was weeping. I threw my arms around him, holding him close, the warmth of his embrace a balm to my weary soul. We wept together, brothers reunited after so long. Then I kissed all my brothers and wept over them, and after that my brothers talked with me. The news quickly reached Pharaoh's house. "Joseph's brothers have come." Pharaoh was pleased. He told me to tell my brothers, "Do this. Load your animals and go back to the land of Canaan, and bring your father and your households and come to me, that I may give you the best of the land of Egypt, and you shall eat the fat of the land." He gave them wagons and provisions for the journey and changes of clothes. To Benjamin he gave 300 shekels of silver and 5 changes of clothes. To my father he sent 10 donkeys loaded with the good things of Egypt, and 10 female donkeys loaded with grain, bread, and provisions for the journey. I sent my brothers away, with one final instruction: do not quarrel on the way. A wry smile must have touched my lips as I said it. Some habits, I knew, were hard to break. They returned to Canaan, to our aged father. "Joseph is still alive," they told him, "and he is ruler over all the land of Egypt." Our father's heart fainted, for he did not believe them. But when he saw the wagons I had sent, the spirit of Jacob their father revived. "It is enough," he cried, tears streaming down his face. "Joseph, my son, is still alive. I will go and see him before I die."
The journey of our entire family to Egypt was a grand procession. My father, Jacob, and all his children, his children's children, his flocks, his herds, and all his possessions. God spoke to him in a vision, assuring him, "Fear not to go down to Egypt, for I will there make of you a great nation. I myself will go down with you to Egypt, and I will also bring you up again, and Joseph's hand shall close your eyes." I went up in my chariot to meet my father, Israel, at Goshen. When I saw him, I embraced him,
and wept on his neck a long time. It was a reunion that transcended words, a healing of decades of grief and separation. "Now let me die," my father said, his voice thick with emotion, "since I have seen your face, because you are still alive." We settled in the land of Goshen, the best of the land, rich and fertile. My family, all 70 of them, prospered under my care. I sustained them, providing food and protection throughout the remaining years of the famine. My father lived for 17 more years, surrounded by his children and grandchildren, seeing the fulfillment of God's promise to make of him a great nation. Even after our father passed, my brothers came to me, still fearful, still carrying the weight of their past actions. What if Joseph bears a grudge against us and pays us back in full for all the evil that we did to him? They whispered among themselves. They sent a message, reminding me of our father's dying wish for peace between us. And again I wept. "Do not fear," I told them, my voice gentle. "Am I in the place of God? As for you, you meant evil against me, but God meant it for good, to bring it about that many people should be kept alive as they are today. So do not fear. I will provide for you and your little ones." And I comforted them and spoke kindly to them. My life has been a tapestry woven with threads of betrayal and triumph, despair and deliverance. From the favored son to the abandoned brother, the faithful slave, the falsely accused prisoner, and finally the powerful vizier. Each twist, each turn, each moment of suffering was but a single stitch in God's grand design. The dreams, the seemingly innocent boyhood visions, were not just prophecies of my elevation, but of the preservation of my family, and indeed of entire nations. What seemed like senseless cruelty at the time was, in the larger picture, a profound act of divine providence. Sometimes, my friend, when you are walking through your own dark valley, when the pit seems bottomless and the way forward obscured, it's hard to see the pattern. It's hard to believe that good can come from evil, that purpose can be found in pain. But my story, I hope, can be a gentle reminder. God works in ways we cannot always comprehend. He takes the broken pieces of our lives, the shattered dreams, the bitter betrayals, and he reweaves them into something beautiful, something meaningful. He turns what others intend for harm into an instrument for good. The sun now dips below the horizon, painting the sky in hues of orange and purple, much like the colors of that old coat, long since gone. The air cools, and the sounds of the city grow softer, replaced by the gentle murmur of the river. May you find peace in your heart tonight, knowing that even in your deepest anxieties, in your racing thoughts, God is weaving a story of hope and redemption. Trust in his plan, even when it is hidden from your sight. Let the quiet rhythm of this ancient tale lull your mind to rest. May your dreams be gentle, your rest be deep, and your spirit be renewed by the unfailing love that watches over you always. Sleep now, my friend.